Stream away. All right, we are streaming. And once Amazon gets my stream data, we will begin. There we go. I'll get going on Amazon. So I was going to do something else today, and then this came in. And then my wife needed to get out for a little bit. So I thought, instead of the stuff I was going to do today, we'll do that tomorrow. I'm actually like super caught up this week on my recorded videos. So we are going to, today, for the next hour or so, unbox and set up this new Chromebook that came in. This is on loan from HP. So I send this back to them when we're done. And we're going to unbox it in a second here. Once a few folks come in. Martin is here on the YouTube side. And yeah, we'll start playing around with things and see how it goes. And I think I've mentioned this already, but I am like super happy with my new setup. I'm running vMix now. I think I told you all that. And what I thought I would do is just show you what my screen looks like, so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. I think I can actually give you this. Let's see what this looks like. Let me just kill the audio. Oh, don't want that. Hang on, I'm just going to kill the audio here because we don't want the audio coming in. But that's not the screen I'm looking for. But that's like that's my control panel here. But it's been working great. And I built this machine myself, so it's been working really good. And it looks like there's some competition for my live stream right now, because we've got Linus is live, Retro Man Cave is live now too. Oh my goodness. So Martin said he picked me out of all of those. That's great. So that is good. So what I'll do is I'll take some questions first, and then we'll unbox this thing and see what it's all about. So I got a couple coming in already. And Matt Green wants to know how my fiber project is going. That's a good question. Actually, I'm going to email the guy right now because I am curious too. So in case you haven't been following my woes, apparently Comcast now can get me my fiber connection. It's going to take about 90 days to get it to me. But it looks like they said they're going to do it. And I'm just waiting on confirmation. So what I did offer to them, because they said it'd be nice if I could do this for them, would be if they gave me the route that the wire is going to take, if I can contact some people I know along the way. And I live in a very small town, so I know pretty much everybody everywhere. So we're going to see how that comes together here. But yeah, I haven't heard from them in about a week. So let me just follow back up. I'm sure they're having issues with keeping the network running under the current circumstances. Do you have the route yet? Happy to reach out to them. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. All right. Yeah, so we'll give them a little nudge there. So what I'm looking at getting is the Comcast Gigabit Pro service. It's going to cost me about $300 a month, which is a lot of money, but I think it's worth it for what I need. And then it's 2 gigabit symmetrical, so that creates some additional network challenges in the house because most of my equipment right now is only 1 gigabit. So that's a good problem to have. But I got recently, I don't know where I put it, they now have some pretty affordable 2.5 gig Ethernet adapters, USB adapters, so I'll just buy a bunch of those and then get something going there. Rafael Toro, VIP, is here from Massachusetts, not far from me. B. Tabalba enjoyed the review of the Chromebook Duet. Yes, I have it right here on the desk, actually. It's nice. I'm really pleased with this. I mean, for the money, it's a tremendous value. What's amazing, though, is that when you look at the iPad, like what Apple's been able to do for this, for that sub $300 price, it's pretty amazing. B. Tabalba wants to know if I'll do a review of the Surface Go. Yeah, I probably will do something on the Surface Go, the new one. I'll have to get one in. Microsoft doesn't like me. I don't know why, but they never reach out to me, so I got to buy them and bring them in here. So we'll see. Mark Bessert had his blister delivered today, and I got mine in. I have to get a few more cables, and I'm going to be. It's going to be another upcoming live stream. Is we're going to do a blister review, and I'll show you what that's all about, involving that. Matt Green says, I use a Mac. I use everything, actually. I use a PC. So I have a Windows 10 PC driving this stream right now because it does a much better job doing this than the Mac does. And then I have a Mac for editing. So I use mostly the Mac, but I do have PCs that I use quite a bit. So we will go from there. All right, so let's unbox this. I'm going to probably shoot an Extras channel unboxing video because why not, right? And so I'm going to hit the record button, and we're going to record this and unbox it, and then we'll set up the Chromebook, and you can kind of see the things that I look for when I'm evaluating one of these. Chromebook reviews are real easy because they don't do all that much stuff. I mean, we have to install some apps and stuff, but it's pretty self-explanatory. All right, let me kick this on here. 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and it's time for another unboxing. 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and it's time for another unboxing. We got in this Chromebook from HP on loan today. This is their new Chromebook 14, and we'll be sending this back to them when we are done with the review. And that full review, by the way, will be up on my main channel at Lon.TV. This is a pretty affordable Chromebook. It's not that expensive. I believe it is selling for under $300, so you should be able to get one for a good price. This one has the N4000 chip, which is I believe it's a Gemini Lake processor, if I'm not mistaken, the lower-end Intel chips that we typically see on these. But it's the higher performing one, so I think it'll probably be a pretty good value here. So in the box, we've got some instructions, some setup instructions. And then we have the Chromebook itself. And let's take a look and see what it looks like. So it's in a plastic bag here. And we will take it out of its bag and see what we got. So yeah, it looks pretty nice. Not bad. This is a 14-inch device. I don't know about the screen resolution. Looking at it, I have to check the specs because I haven't even looked at those yet. Looking at it, this appears to be like a 720p display. So it's not the best looking display. It's kind of, it's kind of blah. It's not a 1080p display, unfortunately. But I will get this set up in a few minutes here. But you do have a good selection of ports. So we've got a headphone jack here. You've got a USB Type-C port. And we also have a micro SD card slot there. This is plastic, by the way. It looks metal, but it's plastic. On the other side, we've got another USB Type-C port and a full-size USB 3 port, and in the full review we'll check and see if we can get external displays going through this. I would imagine these ports will allow for that, but we'll double check that. It's got the Bang & Olufsen speakers on here too. The keyboard looks like your standard your standard Chrome OS keyboard. Nice big keys here, and it's backlit too. You can't see that on camera, but there is a backlight on there, so that's pretty good. And yeah, looks good. This is fanless. It doesn't appear to have any vents on it or anything, so it should run completely silently. And let's see what else is in the box here. I think we probably just have the power adapter, which of course will be a USB-C power adapter. Yep, that's what it's got there. So yeah, good stuff. So we're going to start playing around with this and seeing what it can do. And when we're done, we'll have a full review up on the main channel at Lon.TV, so stay tuned. See, that's what I call a one-take wonder. So yeah, good stuff. Memory on this one, 4 gigabytes of RAM. And if I read the box here, it's got 32 gigabytes of eMMC storage on board. So it's got the N4000. So that I think that's a quad-core processor. I'm just going to get it on my Wi-Fi real quick. Yeah, so out of the gate here, I'm not crazy about the display. I think you could easily, for this price point, I think this is like $269 right now. It's a little bit more on Amazon at the moment. And let's see, is that a touch screen? No. I think you could get a 1080p display on these things at this point. So it's going to do its updating. So we'll let it go ahead and do that. But it's fully charged, so this will be a good test run here. But the keyboard feels pretty good. I mean, it doesn't feel, doesn't feel bad to me. I'll get you a shot back here once I get my camera back up on it. It's actually pretty lightweight. I'm not sure what it weighs. I'll double check the specs, before I do the full review, but it feels like it's definitely less than 3 pounds. It doesn't feel that heavy to me. And we'll review our sync settings. And what's going to happen next is it's going to download all this stuff. So I've got like this, this test account that I use. And when I set up a new Chromebook, it basically brings all the stuff in. And I wish my Windows computers did this because it gives me everything that I usually look for and test. It just comes right down on it, which is great. Yeah, so my only gripe so far is the display. It's not great. Because I would have loved a 1080p display on this. Let me see if it tells me what the display is here. It is, yeah, it's just HD, 220 nits. And we'll skip this. We'll get the Google Assistant up. All right, I agree. So I think it does, I don't know if it does the hey, you know what thing here. We'll find out. I think it might support that. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do real quick? I am going to say, hey, you know what? So if you don't want me to set off your phone, you might want to mute, okay? Because I'm giving you that warning right now. All right, so we're going to say, hey, Google, what time is it? Hey, Google? All right, so she's not listening there. So what if I hit the button? Dictation, let's see. Okay. Petition insane? I think she misunderstood what I said. So maybe we have to activate that always listening thing? I'm not sure. All right, well, let's see what's going on here. So right now, I think it's probably downloading, yes, doing all the setup stuff. So we definitely have Android apps on here like we do on the other ones. Let me get you a tighter camera angle here. Yeah, I think actually, you know what? The very first Chromebook, because I'm just looking at the comments here, Chris K says HP makes some really good Chromebooks. In fact, the very first Chromebook I reviewed was from HP. I think they were the first ones to make a Chromebook, if I'm not mistaken, at least the first ones to have one out to market. And it was a little ARM-based computer. It was actually pretty nice. It was a pretty slick little machine. And it just was, it was running with an ARM processor. And at the time, there was no Android apps. There was nothing. It was just a web browser. And a lot of people were wondering, is this going to be a thing? And then Google was really smart. They started selling these things to schools, and schools found tremendous value in them. My school has that. So the other thing I'm doing right now is I'm turning on the Linux applications. So we're going to install that, get that going. And then what I always like to do is install LibreOffice, just because that's a great way to demonstrate why you might want to activate this Linux thing, because you can get an Office suite that runs locally on your Chromebook. So that's what I like to do. Matt says he believes Samsung was the first to have Chromebooks. That might be the case. I just remember the first one, there was this HP one that came out right when they did their Chromebook thing. So, but you're probably right about that. Matt Green wants to know also about my 2GS behind me. Yes, as a matter of fact, it's totally functional. What happened was the power supply has a capacitor on it. It's called the filter cap. And those are notorious for blowing up when they get old. And so when I was doing this retro review about 2 or 3 years ago on it, the filter cap blew right in the middle of me shooting the review, and there was smoke coming out everywhere, and I had no idea what was going on with it. But apparently that's a very common thing to happen. So the power supply I have is essentially bad because of that filter cap, so I have to get it recapped. But so a strange thing happened about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. A friend of mine who's very active in the Apple II community, my friend Ken, connected me with a guy locally here who used to be in charge of his local user group. And he gave me a carload of old Apple stuff, which I have in the back over there. And at some point, I'm going to do a live stream of just going through it all. But in there is what looks like a brand new Apple 2GS power supply. So at some point, we're going to unbox it and get that old 2GS operating again. So that might be kind of fun. And Doom Somehouse is very interested into the blister. He just got his Mister working 2 days ago. Yeah, the Mister is such a great, if you're a retro like a retro nerd like me, it's such a great project because you're constantly tinkering. So it's really good stuff. Paul says he just bought the HP 2-in-1 14-inch touchscreen Chromebook with the i3, and he loves it. Yeah, I think if you go into Chrome OS knowing exactly what you're getting, and it meets the needs that you have evaluated for yourself before you buy, you're going to be very satisfied with them, because these things are just like rock solid. I bought one for my mom years ago, and it's still working great for her. So it's really, there's a fantastic platform. And now with the Linux stuff, it's just even better. So, you know what we could actually try here is, why don't we see if we can get an external display connected. So I've got a little HDMI dongle here, and then I can just mirror the screen, and you can see what I'm typing as I type. So why don't we do that? So we're going to fire up my little NDI box here. So where did the plug go for that? I got this new NDI box that I'm going to have to review this. I'm so happy with it. It's a new tech box, and it brings 4K NDI feeds over your network to your equipment, and it works great. I'm so happy with it. So we're going to plug in this Chromebook here into my NDI box so you can all see what I'm working on. So what I'm doing right now is I'm getting the Linux stuff going here real quick. And let's go and just add a source. Just waiting for my NDI box to pop up here on the network. I'm actually surprised I don't see it yet. Hang on a second here. You know what I'll do though in the interim here, I'll show you what I'm working on. So here's my desktop that I am currently working with. And what I'm going to do is go over to NDI desktop capture. And for some reason, my NDI box, when I was just saying all these wonderful things about, it is not showing up on my network yet. Why is that? So let's unplug it and plug it back in again. Maybe that needs a good little reboot. I did find it crashed on me recently, so I don't know if maybe there's just something about it. So we'll let that reboot real quick. But what I'm doing right now is I am just getting I'm getting the Linux side here kind of up to date. And I found that if you do like the sudo apt-get update and then the upgrade just to like just bring the container up to the most recent version, that helps out a lot. Just to get everything you need, all the stuff updated that it might use. So we've got like 158K of some updates to various packages here. So we're just going to let that run real quick. Yuki says, I want to ask about Chrome OS. Can this software install in the Google Play Store and upgrade the eMMC flash? I'm not sure what you mean about that. You can put Google Play on most Chromebooks now. So this one is running Chrome OS. And it has a Google Play Store, so it does have the ability to run Android apps as well. And let's see if that NDI box, there it is. Okay. And yeah, I'm just going to mirror the display here. So let's go over here. And let's go into the settings real quick. And I'm running it on battery right now too, just to see how it handles there. Yeah, so my only gripe with the machine here is just I would have preferred a 1080p display. And I think this might be a TN display too. You know, it's not a deal breaker by any stretch, but it would just look nicer if it was 1080p. So this is all boring command line stuff, but when you install Linux, like this is the kind of stuff you have to do. And what I did here is I just initiated a command to just update all of the various parts of the Linux subsystem here. So that's what it's doing right now. Okay, so now it's done with that. And now we're going to just type in sudo apt-get install LibreOffice. And this will take a while, actually, because what it's going to do, it's going to go out and get all of the different things that it needs to run LibreOffice. So as you can see here, it's going to download 872 megabytes worth of software to get all this working. But what's nice is that it does it all for you. So you just type in that one command, and that brings in that Office suite. And on a Chromebook, this is why I'm recommending now, if you're out shopping for a Chromebook, you want to get one with the most amount of storage you can afford. And the reason is just because of this, because you have so much stuff that you might want to install on it now, right? I mean, you want to get your Android apps going on it, and you want your Linux stuff. So, 32 gigs is not a lot of space, especially if you're doing more than just the basics with your Chromebook. But a lot of schools are buying these, so they don't want people installing all this stuff, and for them, it's probably fine. So Chris K says he has the original HP Chromebook 14. Let me scroll back up here for a second. And this one looks a lot like the original. He loved the keyboard on it. It was a nice lightweight machine. And he's on the first HP Chromebook 14 X360. And Chris, I'd be wondering if, is that one still supported? Or has that one hit the end of its lifespan? Let me know. Because my mom has I gave her a Asus Chromebook that hit its end of support life. It still works, but she gets the notification now every time she boots it up. And you can see it's still doing its thing here. Price on this one is, I think it's around $269. The Amazon price might be a little bit higher right now because I think it's a third-party seller, or it might be a different configuration than the one I have. But I think this one starts at $269 with the 720p display. And what it's doing right now, this is the Linux thing. It's installing LibreOffice. And there's a lot of components and things a lot of dependencies. And what's nice about this package manager, the sudo thing, the apt-get thing, is that it just installs all the things that it needs to get that software running. So you just type in one command and it does its thing. You don't have to go and piece it together yourself. Mark Bessert has the Acer Chromebook R11. All good stuff. Yeah, we'll check out, if we have some time, we'll check out some emulators on it too. Maybe as this is going, we can go and do that. So let's go grab MAME. And actually, I would expect the emulators to do pretty good on this one. So we'll jump in here. Now, the one thing you could run into with this, actually it is installing, this is one of my things that auto installs. The one thing that you could run into on this particular Chromebook, especially with the Android apps, is that this is an Intel Chromebook. So this is running with an Intel N4000 processor. So it is possible that some of the Android apps may have some issues if they were better optimized for ARM. So you'll see some things that may not install on it. You'll get a warning about that. And let's see what else we got here. Lewis wants to know, do I see a bright future for Chromebooks? I do. It's funny. I didn't get it initially when they first came out. So if you go back to my very first Chromebook review, which I think was in like 2014, I was like, this thing is so limited. It's just a web browser. But again, what's happened is I think we're doing more applications on the web to begin with now. And then as time has gone on here, I think Google's been very smart about adding features to the operating system that are consumer friendly. Namely, the Android components are really, I think it was a very smart move by Google to add that. So, if you have, like, for example, the Duet tablet that we just reviewed last night, what's nice about this is that even though it's running Chrome OS, you've got an Android tablet, so you can run your Android apps on it, and it's a tablet. You can take the thing off the keyboard and you have a tablet, but then it works like a desktop computer when the keyboard's attached. And I think it does a better job than Windows does at being a tablet. They've done good work there. So they've kind of de-emphasized Android tablets, but they have emphasized Chrome OS tablets, which can run Android. And I think if you look at this strategy that Apple's taken with the iPad, they've separated the iPad from the iPhone insofar as the operating system development. So they used to both run iOS, and now the iPad runs iPad OS, which will have features that are different than iOS on the phone and on the iPod Touch. Here with the Chrome OS, they've decided that tablets, more or less from Google, the Google official ones, if you will, are going to be focused on having Chrome OS as the main operating system, so you can switch between a laptop use and a tablet use. And they're not trying to create some hybrid operating system. They've created something that allows you to run, specifically designed mobile apps on there. And it gets kind of weird, though, when you're running Android now in a laptop format, because some of these apps, especially the games, are anticipating a touch screen, and this is not a touch display. So that's one of the things that you run into there. But I think there's a very healthy future for Chrome OS, and it really ties into education, because you can equip a school for like $200 a piece. In some cases, you can buy the computers for less than the textbook costs a school typically. So it's a no-brainer. And Google came in with some really generous software licensing terms and stuff. So my school system has a one-to-one program. My daughters are too young right now to get one. But all the middle schoolers and high schoolers have their own Chromebook that's issued to them, because they're so inexpensive, and then they're so easily managed, and that's been really good for the school system. So the kids don't have really any ability to do anything with them beyond what the school allows and requires. All right, so let me show you what we just did. So that process finished, and what's cool about, and I can pull this up on screen here, what's cool about how the Linux apps work is that if you have a GUI, graphical user interface Linux app to run, it will run just by clicking on it. So you don't have to go into this command line thing to pull it up. It'll just load, although I'm seeing a video problem here. Let's see what happens. So I should see LibreOffice right here. Yeah, we got some video problems there. Ooh, that is brutal. What is that? Oh my goodness. It's funny. We had some video issues with the other one. I don't know. Maybe there's some trouble afoot with the Linux thing, and it could just be that we have a display attached. So let's unplug the external display real quick, and let's see what happens to the Linux apps after I do that. And let's see. We got some more questions. Light Mr. 90 wants to know, can all Chromebooks run Linux? No. Most of the new ones can. So I haven't seen a new one from a major brand that can't. But see, that's a problem right there. That should not, we should see LibreOffice lighting up, and yeah, that's a mess. Okay, so that's going to be a problem. But what we don't know is whether or not this needs an update. And actually what I'm going to do, this is a good opportunity to see if you can run display out of both USB-C ports here, and you can. Perfect. So 2 USB-C ports, and we can run the display out of both. So now what I'm curious about, because we're seeing some issues with that, so let's see if Chrome OS is due for an update. And if it is, that might fix our problem. Jason Jones has an HP Chromebook from last year. And I think like I said, I think if you know what you're getting into with a Chromebook, you will be happy with it. Yes, it looks like we've got an update coming down. There's often a lot of updates when you first get your Chromebook. And if you have, and what will happen with a Chromebook is that it syncs up with your Google account. So if you have another Chromebook and you've got all these Android apps and all this other stuff installed on it, generally what will happen is that it's going to download everything that you have on the other Chromebooks, and basically it's a mirror image from one to the next. So one of the things at the school, like when they have problems with Chromebooks at the school, it's super easy for the staff there. They just, they have a few extras, and rather than have the kid wait, they take in the Chromebook that has problems and they just give them another one. And once they connect their account, it's exactly where they left it. And so generally, with the exception of the Linux stuff here, generally the Chromebook will sync most of its stuff to the cloud. All right, let's see what we... Macri wants to know, can you install Linux and Android apps to the SD card? I don't believe the Linux apps can go on the SD card. However, I think they have been getting, they've been allowing SD card usage on Android for storage, but I don't think you can put apps on the card yet. I might be wrong about that. Let me know if I am. I think one of the things in the Linux thing, they will, allow external storage at some point, but right now they don't. And the reason is that they isolate all of these things from each other. So there is so let me show you here on, let me find the file app here. So you have a way to transit files between the subsystems, but they're generally isolated from each other. So let me pull up, well, that's updating. There's updates upon updates upon updates. And I always have trouble with the start menus on these things. Where is it? So I am looking for the files. Here it is. And this is a handy app to load up because you will get, I think this will also tell you how much space you have on your Chromebook. I think if you go up here, yeah. So if you go up into the right-hand corner, it tells you how much space you have left, first of all. That's a key thing. And you can see how much is available, what's taking up what. So for example, we've got a 1.8 gigs of Android storage already. Linux is taking up 2.9 gigs, likely all the stuff we just installed. So you can get a good quick look at your storage situation. You can get at that through settings also. But what will happen here is that the Linux files are in here, the Android stuff is in here, and it keeps it all separated. So I can't have a Linux app that will cross over from that Linux container and start infecting the Chrome OS side of the machine. So you could, if let's say for example you got some ransomware on there, it could infect the container that it's running in, but it won't impact the host, which is the Android thing or the Chrome OS side. Generally, there's always exceptions to that. So that is it. Chris K's Chromebook has reached its end of life. And they all will work at the end of life, but they don't get updated anymore. The Lenovo we just looked at is 8 years of support, which is the longest I've seen. This one, I think it's probably 6 years. I'll have to double check. We'll look on the page in a second. And the important thing with Chromebooks is that the expiration date is not the day you bought it. So let's say you find this one on sale 2 years from now. Your expiration date doesn't start from the purchase date. It starts from the date that the platform that the Chromebook is running on was released. So you don't pick up, if you bought it 2 years from now, you're still going to expire on the same date. All right, so now we are rebooting. And we are back up here. And I just have to log into my account real quick. And you can have multiple accounts on a Chromebook, and they're all tied to your Google account. All right, we are back. And I haven't run my, my tests on it yet because we're still in the process of getting all these Android apps and everything else installed. But what I am curious about is whether or not our Linux capabilities have improved since we had our last boot here. So we have updated the OS. We're current on that. And I'm just going to load up LibreOffice Writer again. Now the first run here, since we rebooted, is going to take a while because it has to load that Linux container up first. And then it's not a virtual machine. It's a container. So it's running, essentially using the resources of the underlying operating system, but again, isolating everything. So this is going to take a second for it to load. Oh, much better. See that? That's how it's supposed to look. Good. So that was it. Just needed a little update. And let's see how that looks. MZU 5000 wants to know if a nice Windows tablet with a hub support. I think the nicest one out. Oh, it's still doing it. Ugh, not good, everybody. I may reach out to HP on that. And it's hard when you review these Chromebooks because they get updated so frequently. You know, a problem that I find now may not be a problem a month from now. So there's always these little things that happen. Let me go into something else here. So let's go look at maybe the spreadsheet and see if maybe that works a little differently. So this is their, yeah, some video problems here with the GUI apps. Yeah, so it looks like none of the icons have the right, there's something graphically not right here. Pedro wants to know, does Chrome OS work on AMD processors? Yep, you'll find some AMD ones out there. I believe there's some Ryzen ones that are coming out along the way. So that'll be out soon. Durian wants to know, can I show a mouse option? I need to confirm if Chrome OS has the same missing option. So I don't know what you mean by that, Durian. So if you can elaborate, I'm happy to help. This one, Max stock has 32 gigs of storage. And I don't know if they have a higher storage version on this one. AJ, I'm doing just fine. TechFlood asked about the fiber build. Yeah, I have no updates on the fiber build. They reached out to me last week, and I haven't heard from them since. I'd emailed them right when I started here to see if there's any news from them. But hopefully we will find out what's going on. And also, I'm getting updates from my router that my Wi-Fi is like malfunctioning. What's going on here? Alarm, Dream Machine. We're still on the Wi-Fi. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. Looks like everything is still working. I'm having some technical problems on my network, apparently, that I'll have to deal with after I'm done with the stream here. Dom says, does anyone actually use LibreOffice on a Chromebook? Google Docs is so much better. Libre is flaky at the best of times. Yeah, I don't know if they do or they don't. I found, like, for demonstration purposes, it's a great way of just kind of showing, you know, an app that people would be familiar with insofar as what it looks like. We could try, let's see if we can install, like, the GIMP, the photo editor. Let's see if that might give us a better experience. I think it's just called GIMP. And so we'll just type in that command there, and that will install the GIMP. 170 megabytes for that. This is kind of like a Photoshop thing. So we'll see if we have the same graphical glitches there. Chanflay98, thank you very much for your super chat contribution. TechFlow wants to know, do I use Unify for Wi-Fi? Yeah, I have a Unify Dream Machine. And it just emailed me about 5 minutes ago telling me that all my access points are off the network, but we're still connected to the network. So I think this happened a few months ago. Like the Dream Machine just like locked up, and it was still on the network, but it like just dropped everything that was connected to it. It was like almost like the controller went out on it. So I just have to reboot the router when we're done with the stream. So AJ Horning has his Acer Chromebook N7 is running Windows 10, and he installed Minecraft on it with Optifine. Awesome. Yeah, you can install other operating systems on these Intel ones, but it's not for the faint of heart. You got to really shoehorn it in there. Lewis wants to know 8-bit-Do or Xbox controller support for Chromebooks. Yes, they do support game controllers. I don't know about X input though. We'll have to play with that if we have time. I don't have a lot of time today. So we're just going to get this thing kind of set up and waiting for all the different Linux or Android apps to install. But I just installed the GIMP, which is a photo editor. So I just want to see if we have the same. Yeah, you see it's like really flaky. It's like flashing and. So this looks a little better, though. I don't think this is as glitchy because all the icons are there. Let me see if I can find an image. You know what we'll do is we'll go grab an image real quick. And if you ever needed images to edit, like you want some public domain stuff, just go to NASA and you type in something like the space shuttle and you get all these free images because this is all public domain stuff. It's pretty good stuff. So maybe we'll grab this one real quick. I went to 3 of these launches. I was at the last 3, so Discovery, Endeavour, and Atlantis. I was at the last of all 3 of those. And I also, we're going to put this in the Linux files. And what this will do is it'll put it right in the home directory. And then I was at the last landing of Atlantis, which was awesome. All of it was awesome. All right, so there we go. See, it dropped it right into my home directory there. So we'll just click on that. Yeah, so it looks like, you know, there's some glitchiness going on, but it looks like this app is working okay. So it might just be certain applications depending on what they're doing. Let's see, how do we zoom in here? Let's see, zoom is just plus. There we go. Yeah, it seems to work okay. All right, so yeah, it might just be an issue with that. I'll try a few other Linux apps just to make sure. And another thing we can do on this one is we can actually install Steam on it. And I always have to look it up because there's a couple of different packages that you have to install for this. But one of the rumors out there right now is that they are working on a new version of Steam for Chromebooks that are running Intel. But this site here is a great source for installing Steam on your Chromebook. And then, oh yeah, that's right, we got to enable this too. So GPU acceleration is also important. Now this doesn't really have a GPU, it's got the Intel GPU, but if you're going to game on it, you're going to want to do that. So the next thing we're going to do here is go to Chrome and enable the flag. Let's see if it, because now it's part of the stable releases in most cases. Let me just grab this here and see if it'll work. Not all of these Chromebooks support that either, so and then we go over here and we will enable that. And then we have to restart the Chromebook. This is an Intel Chromebook. It's powered by an N4000 Intel processor. Max wants to know, do Chromebooks get driver updates like Windows? Yeah, they are regularly updated. And what's nice about them is that they're designed not to be, well, it depends on your perspective. They are designed not to be user serviceable, either hardware or software. So the nice thing is, like, I can give this to my mom and she will just use it. Like, there's not going to be a problem with it. But that might not be ideal for everybody. Some folks like to have a little more control over their computers. But for my mom, it's great because I can drop it off and she'll call me all the time, of course. But she won't call me about her computer because her computer is always going to work. And we still got some more stuff downloading here, but we'll boot up the Linux thing again and we'll continue installing Steam on here. And the Linux apps, unlike the Android apps, the Linux apps don't install automatically every time you refresh your Chromebook, so they don't synchronize your Linux settings between sessions. All right, so we enable GPU acceleration, and now we've got to do this. So we're going to start, I think we can just grab all of this. Oops, what am I doing? I did not want to do that. We got to take it one line at a time here. So we're going to grab, oops, this one first. And we'll do that. And we'll jump over to the command line here, because this is going to install like a lot of stuff. And on the command line here, if you right-click, that will paste what you grabbed off of that website. And what happened? Oops, I know what I did wrong. Hang on a second. First, run the following commands in your terminal. So that did not seem to work. Echo. Actually, it did exactly what it said it was going to do. It echoed that. Why did it want you to do that? Hang on a second. Linux terminal in Chrome OS is basically da-da-da-da. First, run the following commands in your terminal. Echo div. Yeah, it should have done something there. Let's see. What am I doing wrong? This might do it. Nope. This worked before on another Chromebook that I had, so I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong here. Let me grab the whole thing and see if that might be better. There we go. All right, so now we're going to get Steam going. Yeah, it looks like GTA 5 is free on the Epic Store. I was hearing some rumors of that, so it looks like they did it. I love, there's a lot of competition amongst these things. I've been really happy with Game Pass on my Windows PC. And now we're going to install Steam. And this guy's website is the best source for this because it's just so easy to get it up and running. But you can't, just go out and run GTA 5 on this thing. So all the limitations you would have within Gemini Lake processor on Windows, you will have here. This is not going to give you any kind of awesome performance, but it will run some of the games that are reasonable most of the time. Although with some of the little graphical glitches we're seeing, I wonder, if that we may not have as good of an experience here. We'll find out. We have to agree to the Steam license agreements. And we'll let that continue installing. And I'm going to check my Unify here because it's like sending me emails about how everything in my house just disconnected, so I don't know what's going on. At least the stream still works, so the Ethernet's working. And I haven't heard complaints from upstairs, so the kids don't seem to be having any trouble. So I wonder if my access point's updated or something, because now everything looks to be okay. Very odd. All right, so now Steam is installed on here. So what we should be able to do, let's go back to my Amazon app here. I just want to check on something. Okay. All right, so now we have Steam installed. In fact, you can see it down here. Look at that. And I can just load it up. And so what it's doing now is it's doing its thing. And we'll just leave that command line there. And this is the Linux version of Steam. And because we've got an Intel processor on here, we're able to run some Steam games. So if there's a Steam game that's in Linux, it should run on here. Again, the performance will vary based on, the performance will vary based on what the game entails. So don't get your expectations up here. This is an N4000 Gemini Lake chip, so whatever runs on that typically will run here. And Dom says enabling the GPU support might have fixed the graphical issues. That's a good point. Let's take a look and see if, yep, that seems to be working better. Let's see what else. And I should add too that the Linux support on the Chromebooks right now is in beta. That one's still not right. The Linux support is in beta, so this feature gets updated separately. And there's two different channels for the operating system. So you have the Canary channel and the beta channel or whatever, the developer channel. So they'll be working on things related to the Linux subsystem on some of those channels that get updated more frequently. And then we're on the release version right now, which is where they'll only release things when it's totally safe. Douglas Watts says, can you show some web apps from AppScope? I use them all the time on my Pixelbook. I am not familiar with AppScope. Send me a link or a suggestion of something I should search for, and I'll take a look. All right. So, pins potentially out of date, rebuilding. I don't even know what that means. What is that? That's some Linux thing? Anybody know what that means? That might be pins in the thing down here, maybe. I'm not sure. All right, so Steam is updating, and then we'll be able to log into it. And what will happen here is I'll have access to my Steam library. One of the cool things about Steam is that if you bought a game on Windows, if it also has a Linux version, that's going to be available to you as well. And incidentally, in addition to storage space, you should also be thinking about RAM on your Chromebook, because even though these Chromebooks are very efficient, you still need RAM to do things. So we've only got 4 gigs of RAM on this Chromebook, so the amount of different things that we can do will vary. And if you have too many things loaded, that might create some problems as well, and some stability issues. Jason Jones says, do I think they'll get rid of the Chrome OS store? I don't know. I know they're kind of deprecating it, but there are extensions that are useful in Chrome, including some from Google too. So I'm not sure. I think they probably will try to, especially on the Chrome platform, they'll probably want to push developers to develop Chrome OS, focused apps on the Android store. I think that's probably easier for them. All right, so here we are. We're in Steam. This will look familiar to you if you've ever used Steam before on your Windows computer. So I'm just going to log into my Steam account real quick, and I've got to do all the two-factor authentication stuff as well. And I got to get my key from them. So let me do that real quick. And then we'll take a look at some stuff we might be able to install. And by the way, this is where storage also becomes a factor, because these games can get big, and if you've only got 32 gigs on your Chromebook, that's going to be problematic, right? It's not a lot of room here. Okay. So I have access. Okay, so we're good there. So let's wait for this to come up. And here you go, Steam on a Chromebook. Isn't that cool? And it looks like it's working. You can always add me. If you want to add me as a friend on Steam, you can do that. I don't come on too frequently. Now, the Steam client itself is running a bit slow. That's to be expected. So we're not going to, for example, Xplane is not going to run on here. I don't even know if there is a Linux version. What I'm going to do, though, is just click on this little Linux icon here to give us just the games that'll play on this device. So what I like to do is run Shovel Knight, because that's a great, that's the kind of game you would run on a Chromebook, right? So we can throw that on here. And it's not that big, I don't think. Yeah, it's 480 megabytes. And you can see I've only got 12 gigs left on the Chromebook. So we'll pop that on here. I don't think a lot of these other games are going to run very well. Just given that they're not going to run on this platform generally on its own anyhow. And then some of these old DOS games, like they don't run that great because it has to run DOSBox first, so it just doesn't cooperate very well. Half-Life 2 is something generally that works pretty good. on this particular platform. So maybe we'll try that real quick. This is a big download. I think this one's like almost a 4 gig. Oh no. Yeah, 6 gigs. I'll have it do that in the background. And what happened to Shovel Knight? Let's see. Shovel Knight. Yeah, and also because this is like beta, like super beta, don't expect things to function perfectly every time. All right, Shovel Knight. Let's try that again. I'm going to leave it here this time and see what happens. But you can see what it takes to review these things. We spend a lot of time on these things. It's it's a lot of things that Chromebooks used to be show me the browser and how does the browser perform. But now there's a lot more to show. And so when I get one of these Intel ones in, I usually go and install Steam because that's something that people should know that, hey, you can, it's not as easy as it is on Windows, but you can shoehorn Steam on here and some of the lower impact games will run sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. And we'll let that do its thing. And once Shovel Knight gets on there, we'll see. And what we'll be able to figure out on this, let me kick it up in the queue here. One of the things that you'll notice right away is that if the GPU support is working, Shovel Knight should run close to 60 frames per second. Not quite, but close. Where we're going to see, I think, some advantages on this Chromebook is because it's got essentially the 720p display on board. That will, I think, will give us a bit of an edge here because we don't have a 1080p display to drive. So that should help. But we'll take a look at that. And I've got about another 15 minutes or so before the dinner bell is going to be ringing. I got to start working on dinner. I think I'm going to grill some stuff tonight. That's my plan. And reboot a router, apparently. Okay. Jerome says Stadia would work great. Yeah, Stadia is a good fit for this, for sure. If you've got enough bandwidth, of course, to drive it. But even then, if it's 720p on here, I don't think you need much bandwidth, as much as you would need for like a 4K display. All right, so Shovel Knight says it's ready to play. So let's hit that real quick and see what happens. And I think I've got audio pumping through here for you all too. I'm not sure if there's going to be any audio. Sometimes there isn't. I'm not hearing anything. Okay, so I'm feeling good about this because it's not running like super slow. And we'll just go ahead and pick a random level here. I think I can use these keys to move. Yeah, this is good. Here, I'll pull up. Now, granted, remember, I'm only streaming at 30 frames per second, so that's going to create a bit of an issue there. And I got to see. Let's see. Where's my controls here? There we go. Oops. I'm just playing with the keyboard, which is not ideal. And I don't know if this supports game controllers through Linux. Maybe we should plug one in a minute and see. But this is good, right? I mean, this is playable. And this is a Chromebook. We didn't do anything special here. This is all like legit. Like we're not hacking it. This isn't some kind of jailbreaking thing. It's Chrome OS with its Linux container running here on a little Chromebook. And would you do this with a with a higher end game? No. Like if we run Rocket League, it'll run terribly on this one because the GPU isn't that powerful. This is just the Intel, the Intel GPU here. But you know, this is fine, right? Oops, hit the wrong button there. Let's go back to, where do we go? There we go. But, you know, this is the kind of stuff you can do on Chromebooks now. And if you had a more powerful Chromebook, if you had, you know, one with like an i7 processor on it or something, like you could do a little more than this one. But again, it won't be as good as, you know, if you really want to play games, getting the Windows laptop is the way to go. But here you go. You got this and it works. And so that's good. So we'll be talking about that when we do the review. And let me go to my notes here. I'm just going to make some notes about the things that I want to talk about in the full review of this. And Half-Life is almost done downloading, so we'll take a look at that. And you know, for all the complaints that I have about my internet connection, my downstream is pretty good. My upstream is that's been my big source of angst, is the upstream performance that I have to deal with. Now, there's a reason why, by the way, we did not install Steam on this Chromebook that we reviewed the other day. And the reason is that this one doesn't have the Intel processor. So these Linux games are designed for Intel laptops. And because this has Intel on board, you can run these games. That's the deal. All right, so we're going to just start my little Google Doc here. You can't see what I'm working on here, but I'm just putting some notes in here. So we're going to say Linux. We're going to run LibreOffice problems, because I think that's important. There might be something going on with the video driver on that. Steam, Shovel Knight. And then we'll try out Half-Life 2 real quick and just see how that goes. MaxDocs is, can you store? Yeah, so this comes back to the same issue we talked about before. So they do not at the moment allow external storage for Linux, as far as I know. I would imagine at some point in the future that will change. But right now, this has been, I think the Linux support has been around for about a year, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty good. But look, you don't buy a Chromebook to play. You know, it's not a gaming machine, right? It's a very low impact laptop that's very inexpensive, depending on which one you get, that just so happens to be able to run Linux now, Linux games. So there is some stuff you can do, but you got to keep your expectations appropriately in check, right? So that's one of the things that you have to just be mindful of. And we may have problems with this game. We'll see. Now, Half-Life 2 generally works, and it looks like it's freezing up on me here. Half-Life 2 generally works on this processor. This is an older game. This goes back to, I think, 2006 or 2004? This was like the first game distributed via Steam. In fact, Steam became a thing because they wanted to distribute Half-Life 2 digitally. And so they created Steam. And I remember like buying the game. This is the first Steam game I ever owned, and it got delivered to me days ahead of its release date. What? There's a virtual reality mode for? Oh my goodness! I didn't know they had a VR built into this. When did they do that? Okay, so let's go over to the video settings here, and we're at the native resolution, so essentially 720p. And you can see these are the settings that it's on at the moment. And let's take a look and see. Can we get if I can enable the Steam frames per second counter. Let's see if let's go to new game real quick. Actually, looks like I have some stuff saved on here. Is it just me, or do the colors look off on this? Because I remember that Valve being red, or supposed to be red, and those menus don't look right. So Mr. Foodmoon asks about the ARM chips running Android better than Intel. It depends on the app. Some Android apps are fine on Intel. For a while, there was actually Intel phones that were out there. I had a few that I reviewed. They were running with like Cherry Trail processors. Yeah, this looks very blue to me. but the frame rate looks pretty good. Although I can't turn my, it's weird, I can't turn my head further than that. That's very odd. So here's the, I can't turn further than that for some reason. But, you know, again, we're on a Chromebook here. This is not bad. Yes, it looks like there's some color issues here. And, you know, it's an older game. It probably would run a little better in Windows, but it is running here. So, you know, not bad. I think I have some save games here. Let's load up a save game. Because Jake, who does my reviews, he usually has a couple save games that he jumps to. And all of the stuff that you have that synchronizes with Steam, yeah, the colors are just not right now. All the stuff that you have synchronized with Steam will synchronize here because you are just running a regular Steam client. So performance-wise, it's good. The controls are messed up, so I can't turn all the way around for some reason. The color is off, but the frame rate's good. So I think if we could, you know, figure out why the color is off here, it was fine on Shovel Knight, but not here. But that gives you an idea as to what, you know, what it can do. So Star Master, this is an HP Chromebook 14. And one of the things I'm doing is just getting a bunch of stuff installed on it for my review that I'll be doing a little later on the Chromebook, just to show what you can do with the Chromebook. And one of the cool things about Chromebooks is that because you can install Linux apps, if you have an Intel-powered Chromebook like this one is, within reason, you can get some stuff working on it. All right, so let's see a couple other things here. I have now, I think all of my apps are probably running now, are installed here now. So let's take a look at Mario Kart real quick, because this is a game, you know, not designed for a keyboard. And let's see how it performs. And incidentally, this is a game designed for a phone that's not usually running an Intel chip, so we might see some freezing as we are here. And it just popped up a message that I missed. So what happened? What did it say? Oh, there it goes. Okay, so now it's logging us into the Google game thing. But you might find this happening on a lot of, you know, games that are highly optimized for ARM. But here, actually, here you go. It's starting to load up. You must link your Nintendo account. Oh my goodness. Do I want to do this right now? I might come back to this one because I don't have my password handy for that. So, all right, we'll skip that one. Let's just close that out real quick. What else do I have on here? I've got some other things. Now, and the reason why I have all this stuff on here is that it installs it all when I first get going. Let's see. So I think somebody wanted to see some emulation, but we'll do that in the review because I have to go and grab ROMs and install things in places. But let's try Crossy Road real quick. And this is the kind of stuff that'll work better. Oh, Star Master says it's not, okay, so it's just running in a theater mode, okay. Nice, that'd still be pretty cool though. Wants to know my age. Should I tell it the truth? Oops. And this actually is not running as well as I thought it was going to run. Actually, it's okay. Now that it's going, it's okay. But you can see, actually, no, it's getting a little laggy. It's a little laggy. So it can handle Half-Life 2, but it can't handle Crossy Road. Bonk. And part of the reason, I think, is that this is something that would have been optimized more for Android, for ARM. And given that this is an Intel machine, that's probably contributing to some of the performance disparities here. Like if you're a developer, you're going to spend any time optimizing for Intel, right? So this is a game that would actually run better on the thing we looked at the other day. Now what I want to do before we close out is I want to do a quick benchmark. But before I do that, I want to reboot the machine here because there's a bunch of stuff loaded right now. So I'm going to reboot real quick here. And actually, I'm going to run this benchmark with the external video disconnected also. And what we're going to do is we're going to run the browserbench.org benchmark test on this. And then I've got to call it quits and get the dinner going for the family. Me Pro 3030 says, I'm not much older than him. Yeah, you know, time goes by quick. But knock on wood, I feel good, which is important. I haven't left the house since this whole thing began here. So, all right, and we use a special test account on these machines too. So, just in case. All right, so now, and I don't know if it'll do better with the power supply attached. I'll probably just plug it in just to. We usually test these things when they're plugged in. So I'm just going to hook some power up to it. And because this is USB-C, any USB-C power source will work with it. So I could plug in, I've got an Apple cable over here somewhere too I could just use with it, although the cable disappeared. So you know what, I'm going to use its own power supply. I have found that some of these Chromebooks don't like USB-C docks for some reason. And it varies too. All right, so let's plug this little guy in here. And you can plug it in on either side. So you have two USB-C connectors. You got one over here and one over on the other side. And you can plug it into either one. All right, so we're going to run the first one. So they have two different tests that they run here. And this is going to be a problem. The viewport size is too small. And what I found, if you don't have a large enough viewport size on here, it actually doesn't work at all. So we may have to plug this into a 1080p display to get the best results. Let's take a look and see if we can reduce the size maybe magnify it down. Let's see if we can zoom out a bit. There we go. All right, so we're going to zoom out and let's start the test here and see what we get. And this takes a little bit to execute. And I suspect perhaps, because it's kind of stalled right here, I think zooming it out was not a good idea. So we're going to have to figure that out. So this has got like the 1366 by whatever display, so it's not the usual 1080p that we get. Yeah, it's running super slow. So I don't think this is going to be a valid result. So I'm going to have to play around with this a little bit more. But we'll see what it comes back with. But what you will see with this on a valid result is that you will find, gosh, my network is totally messing up here. What you will find with this is that it will come in around where some of the ARM-based Chromebooks come in. And that's surprising when you think about the fact that you got this Intel processor. Now, granted, the Intel processors are much more complex, so you know it can do things like run the games, like the Steam games that we saw, better than an ARM chip maybe would. And this is kind of like watching paint dry. But what this does, this is something we run on all the laptops that we test on the channel. And you know, it's good because you can get a feel for, especially with a Chromebook, how well it handles you know, different types of web-based applications. This largely simulates the kind of activity you would do in a web app. And so it gives you a good sense as to what the scale of performance is, because we test so many of these different computers that you can get a feel for the performance differences between them. But I don't like to do too many benchmarks because I think the user experience is really the most important thing. Yes, looks like my Wi-Fi is like totally messed up. So my phone just dropped its Wi-Fi connection. The Unify is having some problems in the closet over there. I'm going to have to reboot everything. And we'll let it finish doing its thing. So here's what's interesting. Yesterday, I did a live stream of my Oculus Quest, and we were running like a Star Wars X-Wing independent developer program thingy, and it was like, I was having a blast with that. We had like 50 people watching, but low-cost Chromebook, man, boom, 370 in here watching today. It's funny how people's interests are different. Okay, I'm not gonna necessarily record this as gospel just yet. That's a good score, so that was about where I expected it to come in, but I need to just double check a few things there because of the issues we had when it first started. It did stall for a minute. That could have been a network thing, I don't know. So it gives you a margin of error too, a plus or minus 1.7. But it's coming in like right where another, so we looked at the X360 just recently actually, which has the same chip, and that score is the same. So I think this is actually a good result, believe it or not. So we're gonna record that, but I'm gonna just double check before I shoot the review to make sure. And this is a Gemini Lake. Gemini Lake and 4000. Okay. And we'll say 75.6. And there's a version 2.0 of this test. What I'd like to do is just kind of cycle the browser. And so we'll go and run. Now this looks the same, but it's actually the 2.0 version. And they changed the test version on us, and I didn't realize it for a while. So we went back and now we run both. And this does things slightly differently, so you get a different score. And I think part of it is they scaled the score lower just so that, you know, as computers got faster, I think maybe, I'm not sure. It's doing things a little differently. So this score will be lower, but this should come in around 40 to 45 for a score. So Max says he's got an Intel Celeron 3050, and it's much faster than that. That's interesting. This is about where I saw the N4000 come in at. But we'll see what happens. What did you get for a score on yours, Max? I'd love to hear what you saw on yours. But I do like it's fanless, so you don't hear it, which is always good. Fan noise is a tough thing to talk about also because a lot of folks have differing views as to what proper fan noise should or should not be. Tico wants to know how much. This is about 270 bucks. And important to note, it is a 14-inch display, but it's only a 720p 14-inch display, so it's not, you know, it doesn't look so great. I mean, it's okay, but if I was buying one, I would want one with a 1080p display. And incidentally, this is on loan from HP, so when we're done with this, they take it back. And then after this test is over, I've got to call it a night because I got to go get the family eating dinner. Yeah, HP does have, you know, you got to hunt around their product line because HP has a lot of different SKUs, and you can often find very reasonably priced laptops that are not like, they don't have the crazy branding and stuff. They're like just their middle of the road things. So like there was one year, they had an awesome Windows 10 laptop. It was like a 14-inch 1080p. It had all the bells and whistles. This one's got a backlit keyboard though. Although I would have traded the backlit keyboard for a 1080p display, but that's just me. All right, I have to make sure I log my clip here. Okay, so the test is in, and it came in right where I thought it would, 46.7. So yeah, I think we've got a good result here, 46.7. All right, So we're good there, and we're just going to rename this to all right. So we are good there. Yes, I'll do a little bit more work on this, and then we'll do a review probably next week on this one. But I thought you all would just enjoy watching me kind of set it up and get it going. So hope you had fun, and hopefully you were all staying healthy. And yeah, good stuff. So how does this compare to the Duet? So on the test, let me look. So the Chromebook Duet. Oops, Duet. So the Duet had, so we saw before we had 75 and 46. The Duet on version 1.0 was 46, so it's about half the performance. And on version 2.0 of the test, 27. So basically 27 versus 46. So this is definitely quicker because it has more cores. This is a quad core, and it's Intel. So that's an area where it did better. But we found some of these Gemini Lake machines sometimes come in at around that score. So for example, the Google Pixel Slate, the entry-level one, was like 42.7 and 23, and the Surface Go was around that area too. But again, this is like the higher end of the Gemini Lake processor, so it's going to do a little better. For sure. But very pleased. I think it's good performance out of that. And we'll see where it goes. TB says 20 years ago I would have loved 720. Yeah, 720p 20 years ago on a laptop. Like this would have been, like, think about like if you were to take this laptop and teleport it to 2000 even, 20 years ago, people would be all like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. But it's funny how right? Because you saw how it ran Half-Life. If the colors were right, it would make a lot more sense. But like, whoa, it can do that. It's amazing how our expectations change over time. Sean says he ordered a Duet. Hopefully he'll get it soon. Yeah, it looks like people are really digging that. It's the review is performing very well on my channel. I'm just checking it right now. So we have 15,000 views, which for me in the first 24 hours is very good. So that one's doing pretty well. And actually the unboxing did very well too. So I think I got as many views of the unboxing as I did of the actual review. So it's pretty, it's doing pretty well here. So yeah, so then, so tomorrow I'll be back. I've got a bunch of like random odds and ends, like real quick hit reviews to do. So we're gonna do, I got like a bunch of USB-C hubs and USB hubs and a couple of Amazon hubs. And then I've got this crazy retro power bank that looks like an old Walkman, but it's got a wireless charger inside and a battery. It looks pretty cool. So we'll check that out. Yeah, so good stuff. So I got a little bit more work to do on this, but I've got to halt my streaming to feed the family. But I want to thank all 380 of you who are watching on YouTube, and then usually we get about 2,000 or 3,000 on the Amazon side too. So thank you all for tuning in. Nice Chromebook here from HP. We got a little bit more work to do on it, but so far it seems to be pretty solid for the price point. And I love, as you all know, I like things that are high value. And if this had a 1080p display at this price, I'd be nuts about it. But it's good. So we'll do a little bit more on this when I return. It looks pretty attractive though. It's nice that even though it's all plastic, they try to make everything look the same. So this looks very similar to their higher end units. But I like it though. It's got 2 USB-C ports. That's good. Both of them support display output. So that's nice to see in a low-cost machine. Backlit keyboard. Again, just the 720p display. All right, everybody. I am going to be back again soon. Thank you all for tuning in. And stay safe and healthy. Keep washing those hands. And yeah, look for me tomorrow. I'm not sure what time I'm going to start. I might start a little bit earlier. And it'll be kind of a fun one because I just got a bunch of like random stuff to look at. So that is what we're going to look at. This is a tablet stand, by the way. All right, I'm going to halt the Amazon stream here. Thank you all for tuning in. And I'm also going to end the YouTube one. I want to thank Chanflay98 for your super chat contribution. Very much appreciated. I'm going to be updating the credit rolls hopefully over the weekend too. So more to come. And again, thank you all for your support and your viewership. And thank you all for tuning in. I will see you all very soon. Thanks again. And